I just overheard like an employee orientation, and the employees get 50% off here. I might need to become a part-time thrift store employee. I think so. So you get reduce, reuse, recycle. Am I right? Can you tell I already cut one of these out?
Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey.
And my name is Becky.
And we are the Sorry Girls.
And Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you! It's so exciting.
Also, Happy New Year to our new background. New year, new us.
New background.
If you'd like to see a video all about the journey to making this happen, click the link in the card.
That was last week. Are you subscribed? Because why haven't you watched that already?
It's true. So what's going on this week?
This week we're going to DIY our resolutions because it's the new year. Everybody has their resolutions or goals or what have you, and these are some DIYs that are gonna help us achieve our goals because I feel like that's more fun.
It's true. So we'll talk you through what our plans are for the new year and show you how to make some things. All right, so one of my resolutions this year is to be more organized with my time and my schedule, and therefore maybe that will free up more time for me to do the things that I want to do because my schedule will be better. And I think one of the big things about knowing how to be organized is knowing yourself and knowing what works for you. And what works for Austin and I is like a good old-fashioned on-the-wall calendar. Because I've tried like syncing our calendars through like an app or online cals, and it just doesn't work. We are very like pen on paper people when it comes to organizing together. So having just a big calendar that we can look at in our home is the best way for us to stay organized. But I'm also very particular with the things that I have in my home and making sure that things look good and stylish and feel like the right vibe for me. So a lot of traditional wall calendars just ain't it, sis. So one thing that I have in our house is a paper roller, which I love so much. And since owning it, it's now transitioned into our wall calendar. But the problem with that is that every month I have to go in and like hand draw out a grid calendar, and that is tedious. And the lines are never straight, which bothers me a little bit inside every time I look at it. So I'm gonna try and solve that problem and help my resolution for next year with a DIY. I'm not done. I feel like I have to sneeze too. Nope, okay. Now we already own the paper roller, so the second half of DIY is gonna be the most helpful personally for me, but I know that most people don't own this thing already. So in the first half, I'm gonna show you how you can DIY a very simple wall hanging paper roll for yourself. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, that's probably really loud. So to make this, the first thing that you're gonna need obviously is a roll of paper to put on your paper roller, and then we'll need materials to make the actual hanging thing, which include a wooden dowel, this is 1 1/4 inch, and just a little piece of wood trim that we can use to rip the paper off. And lastly, we'll need some sort of loops or fabric or something to hang the paper roller. I've chosen to use a thrifted belt because it's already the right size and reduce, reuse, recycle. Am I right? So let's get into assembling this. When choosing the dowel and wood bar, make sure they're both longer than the paper roll that you have. The bottom bar is going to attach to the wall with screws, so I'm drilling 2 pilot holes at the end of the wood. I'm then painting both of these pieces black. I also have these little snap screw caps, which I'm going to paint black as well. I'm cutting down the belt to create the straps to hold the dowel and then using a leather punch to make holes for more screws to go through. Okay, now to make a mega calendar stamp. So for the base, I'm starting with this big 15 by 15 inch wood piece. I'm gluing some sheets of basic craft foam together to make one double-layered sheet that's big enough to cover my wood square. Then trace the wood onto the foam and cut it out. And then using a ruler to mark out spaces across for 7 days of the week, and then 5 spaces down for the different weeks. Once the grid is done, double up on all of your lines to basically make the same grid but with thicker grid lines. I'm then using an X-Acto knife to cut out all of the interior squares. I drew X's on the squares to make this easier to understand. As much as it's super tempting, don't pop out the squares just yet. If we glue the foam to the wood with the squares still in, the grid will hold its shape much better. Once it's glued and on the wood, pop out the squares before it fully dries. All right, so once your foam grid is glued down onto your wooden piece, we now have a giant grid stamp that we handmade, and this is pretty cool. So the next part is the fun part, and that's actually stamping the stamp onto our piece of rolled paper. So to actually stamp it, I'm using a black ink pad and inking up the grid. It took a couple tries to get the pressure right when stamping, but once I was happy with it, I went ahead and stamped out 12 grids for the year. So now that my grid calendar is completed, the next step really is just filling it out. And this is the part I actually like doing. What I don't like doing is drawing out the grid every month, but actually filling it out with the numbers and all my plans that I have for that month, I find to be really therapeutic. It's kind of almost like a giant bullet journal on our kitchen wall. If you're making this as a gift for someone, you can either fill out the whole year for them, or you could leave it for them to fill out for themselves. But either way, get creative with how you fill it out, how you write your month titles. Lots of fun to be had there. So the last step is just to hang this up, and this is really simple to do. All we need to do is put our top leather poles onto the wall, and then a couple feet down, screw the bottom bar in, and that's what we're gonna be able to rip the months off as we go. Oh, one fun fact about this calendar is you actually have to do it from the bottom up. So if you wanna remove months every month, start with January at the bottom, say bye, pull down February. You know. Do they know? I don't know if that was obvious. You'll figure it out if you make this DIY.
She's going to yoga class on the first day of the year, guys. New year, got those resolutions.
So for my first resolution, obviously staying organized and being organized. I feel like that's on everybody's list. If it's not, wow, then you're just all of our inspirations. But part of staying organized is making sure, you know that like frantic moment you get when you thought you've lost your phone or your keys or your AirPods. This is something that I'm gonna make to alleviate that stress, because you're always gonna know that your AirPods are on your keychain or they're somewhere that's very easy to find. So I'm gonna make a quick and easy AirPod case. I'm really excited about this because AirPods are basically like, they're essentially a bar of soap. They're like small and slippery, and you don't lose your soap, but you could easily lose them, and you could easily mistake your soap for somebody else's soap because everybody's look the same. This is a great way to customize them and solve all of those issues. To make this, I'm going to be using some faux leather or vinyl, if you will. I realized that the problem about this is that the underside is not faux leather, it's just like woven and not cute. So if you had like a leather scrap or something that was double-sided, I feel like that would be very helpful for this situation. But since we literally had this scrap lying around, I'm gonna use it. So yesterday I spent some time planning out this DIY, and I was trying to figure out a template to use, and after 4 versions, where are my versions? Where are my versions? 5 versions. After 5 versions and some chocolate, that's actual chocolate, later, I have our official template, which will be linked in the description below on our blog. If you guys are a member, then you get your template for free, and if you're not a member, then it's like pocket change. It's less than a coffee, but it will be there for you to follow along and make your AirPod case with me. If you want to try without the template too, you can definitely trace and try to make one, but it did take me a lot of effort to make that template. With my template printed out, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out that template and the little rectangle that comes with it. This is gonna help us add on a carabiner. With my template cut out, I then laid down my faux leather or vinyl on the wrong side so I could trace out that. And while I'm cutting it out, I'm actually using my leather hole punch to punch holes where it's like a very sharp cut, just because I think it's a little bit nicer to have that hole there, and then it doesn't kind of like pull on the leather down the line. And a good hack for the hole where the charging cord comes in, I'm actually punching 2 holes and then cutting 2 slits. This way I get a nice, perfect oval there. or rounded rectangle. Is it a rounded rectangle or is it an oval? And then you'll see little dots as well marked out on the 4 corners. That's where I'm going to be using a screw post to make this whole thing come together. So you're also going to want to punch out those using your leather punch. That's definitely older than you are. Now, since we're all still waiting on faux leather and vinyl to have as nice of a backside as the front side, right now this thing isn't quite double-sided and the inside is gonna just kind of be raw. I did actually paint the inside of one so that it looked like it's double-sided, but I'm a little bit nervous. I mean, I'm still waiting for it to dry. I don't know if this is gonna like rub off on my AirPods, because I used edge coat for this. So edge coat, you're gonna use around all the edges of your raw vinyl or leather. It just gives it a nice little edge. And apparently you can just paint it on the whole thing too if you feel like doing that. But I'm gonna see how it goes with just doing the edges, and we're gonna put it all together and see how it looks. So to apply the edge coat, I'm just using a thin paintbrush and going around pretty much all the raw edges. You just do have to be careful because even though it's the same color, it's gonna give off a different sheen than the faux leather or vinyl. So really try to not get it on that front part of your vinyl. So once everything's dry, we can move on to starting to assemble this together. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually take that little rectangle piece and fold it in half, but kind of offset the fold in half just so that it's less thick. If you can see what I mean here, it's like fold in half, but then I kind of like slid it off center a little bit. Then I'm gonna line it up on the back center towards the top of my little case, and I'm going to add 2 hole punches. I'm gonna use a thick thread, a thick black thread, to start going around and sewing this on. And then I decided afterwards to add 2 more on the bottom part, and I want to do 2 sets of 2 holes just for extra stability. And then you can go ahead and add on your carabiner or keyring of choice. And then of course we have to assemble the rest. So we're going to be taking our screw post and we're going to be sliding on the side flap, the other side flap, and the front bottom flap onto the screw portion. And then we're going to screw that all together so that it's tight. So we're pretty much done. The last thing we have to do is add a little slit on the top hole of our top flap portion. This way it can just slide over the big head of the screw post. And then the very last step is that we protect our AirPod case from getting scratched because the back of the screw post is metal. So I actually just took some scrap felt that I had lying around, cut a little circle, and hot glued that to the back of the screw post so that it's nice and smooth. Because I don't want them to get hurt because this is their little case. Okay, so this is how my little pieces turned out in the end. I think they're absolutely adorable, and if I haven't already mentioned it, I will link this carabiner as well as the hardware below because I think they go together perfectly. They make it look so chic. And make sure you guys tag us on Instagram if you ever do our DIYs because this is a super easy one that we can all do if you have AirPods. Oh, and this is only gonna work, the template only works for the AirPods, like not Pro. The AirPods Pro have a different case, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, so at the end of last year, I got back into yoga, which is something I really love doing. I talked about it on the vlog channel. So going into this year, something that I'd love to keep up and resolve to, is that what resolutions are? You resolve to do something, so it's a resolution, is that right? I resolute to do something? Something I'm gonna resolute to keep doing this year is keeping up with yoga. But that means that I have a yoga mat lying around my house all the time, which as much as it's functional, it's sometimes annoying when it's in the way. So what I want to DIY today is a holder that can keep this together, and if I do hang it up on the wall, it still looks cute. So that's where macrame comes in. I love macrame, you guys love macrame, so we're gonna macrame a yoga mat holder. And this will also work for blankets or towels you wanna bring to the beach. It's gonna be a really simple and universal DIY. So the 2 main things you'll need for this is some macrame cord or just regular rope and some rings. I have these nice wooden ones, but even plain silver rings will work fine for this. Okay, so as you can see, there's a huge pile of rope here, but basically all you need to know is that 2 of your strings, actually, take that back. But all you need to know is that 3 of your middle strings need to be 6 feet long, and 2 of your outside strings need to be 18 feet long. The reason these are so much longer is because these are gonna be the ones doing the actual knotting, which means we use up rope so much faster than we do the middle ones that are just strictly for length. So the first step is gonna be gathering all the tops of your ropes and putting them through a wooden ring. Pull them over a couple inches, and then we're gonna use some hot glue to attach them together. And once I had glued the ropes together, I came in with a separate piece of macrame cording and just went around the whole thing to finish it off nicely. Next, it's helpful to secure the ring down to something. I'm just using some tape to tape it to the work table. Okay, now we're ready to start knotting. This is really easy. The first thing to do is just keep the 2 long pieces off to the sides and then leave the shorter ones in the middle. What we're gonna be creating is a box knot. We've told you how to make this before, but I'm gonna show you again because it's really easy. Starting with the left side, make a 4, then bring the right side over this rope and through this little hole underneath. Pull it all the way through and pull it tight. Sweet, first box knot is complete. So moving the whole way down, all you need to know is do the same thing but alternate between the right, and left the entire time and only use the 2 outer strings. So for the right side, same thing, make a number 4. How do I write number 4? Make a backwards number 4, I guess in this case, kind of like a P, and then bring the left one over the top and then underneath through this hole over here. And pull it tight. Now back to the left side, make a number 4, then bring the right rope over top and underneath through this hole. Okay, so continue doing this pattern all the way down these middle strings until you get to a point where there's about maybe 6 inches left of this rope. So once you've gotten to the very end, you should have something that looks like this, and it will be a little bit less than the 6-foot strings that we had. So now it's time to loop it together before we do the other side, which will look like this. So take the raw end and push it through that wooden ring to create a little loop, and this is where one side of the yoga mat will sit. Then we gotta do the same thing on the other side, which involves taking your other wooden ring and pushing it through. Then we'll need to wrap these raw ends to the inside of this wooden ring. So I'm tucking the strings to the underside of the ring and then gluing them down onto the front, like basically the whole way we started this thing. We're just repeating that process of gluing the strings down and then using a separate piece of macrame cord to go around and finish it off. So once it's finished off, you should have 2 little loopies that look like this. I feel like this reminds me of like a gym piece of equipment, you know. Editor, please put me on the gym rings right now. But this is completed and it's so simple to do. All you do is, because these are like adjustable, you just slip both ends of the yoga mat in, or your blanket or your towel or whatever you want to hold up in this thing, and it's good to go.
So for my next DIY for a resolution, that resolution is running. I have dabbled in running, but honestly, I don't think I've ran more than 2K or 2 miles. I don't know what the equivalent is there straight, but I signed myself up for a 10K in the spring. So I'm gonna be doing some training, and it is winter and it's gonna be dark and wintry for a long time now. It's gonna be dark winter until the spring, which is when the race is. Is it a race? It's not really a race. You just do it, right? I hope it's not a race.
You're racing against yourself.
Yeah, you're racing against your PB, personal best. So a lot of running gear out there doesn't have reflectors built in, and this is super important if you're running or even walking at night or biking. Obviously, you should also maybe consider adding lights, definitely if you're biking, but reflectors are key. So we're gonna make some of those today. It's super easy. Hopefully you're also potentially running and find this relevant, but it's easy DIY either way. You can make it for your running friend. Relevant, right? So first up, I went to the thrift store to see if I could find any running gear that I can upcycle. Roll the clip.
Okay, so there wasn't much luck in pants, so let's look at these jackets, because I actually do need a running jacket, because my boyfriend is sick of me borrowing his. And I don't know if his has reflection on it anyways, so.
No.
So I'm looking for brand names here, and you guys actually might remember that I found a Nike jacket when I was here. If you guys watch the vlog channel, if you don't, please consider subscribing. Oh, this is cute. Reebok, black, and no reflection, so this can definitely be upcycled. But I was going to say that maybe I could upcycle that jacket. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. We're also gonna check men's activewear because sometimes items just end up in men's, even though they might not be men's.
So I only ended up walking out with this Reebok sweater, but it's like brand new. It still has the tag on it. And it has 0 reflectability on it. So we can add that, but to add that, we're gonna need to go to the fabric store and pick up some reflective trim. Roll the clip.
That's shiny.
It can be something like this.
Yeah, that one's better. Wait, I just heard these girls walking to the thrift store and they said, "Where's the scrap fabric bin?" And then they pointed to the back. There's a scrap fabric bin here? I've been here like a million times. I did not know there's a scrap fabric bin. I am shook. Wow, I just wanted to say I never knew there was a scrap fabric bin, and I overheard you guys asking, and I was like, what is this? I need to know. Good to know.
Oh, this would be pretty.
Now we know.
So I picked up my reflective trim and I'm gonna start adding it to my sweater.
So on the back of my sweater, I measured out a length of my reflective ribbon across the back, and I added a little bit of extra so that I could fold in the edges just a little bit so it has a nice edge. I went ahead and pinned that all the way across, and then I had to put the sweater kind of on the sewing machine so that I could sew the 2 lines across. Now, I was gonna add some more reflective ribbon to this, but I decided to make little cuffs that are removable so that you can add them to kind of like whatever sweater or jacket you might be wearing. So to do this, you're just gonna need to measure around your arm or your ankle or wherever you want to add this on. You could even add one on your chest and measure out your reflective ribbon. And I added just a little bit extra, like a quarter, a half an inch, so that I had a little bit to fold under for a nice edge. Then I went ahead and cut my sticky Velcro. Now, you're gonna wanna cut a piece that is a little bit longer than you might need. This way, if you're wearing something bulkier or less bulky, there's more overlap so that it'll fit more items. Does that make sense? Bigger, smaller, perfect. Versus a small piece would be like, I can only overlap a little bit. Yeah. So with my one side folded down, I pressed down my one side of my sticky Velcro, and then peeling off the backing of the other side, I wrapped it around like you would in a circle, and then pressed that down so that it lined up. That was super simple, and I even considered sewing it on as well, like do the sticky plus the sew, but sewing machines don't really like sticky Velcro, they're not friends. And also this was super sticky. I was like, oh, I feel very confident that this is gonna stay. So I didn't end up sewing it. I just stuck the Velcro on because it was so easy. No sew project. We love a no sew project. So now I ended up making 4. You can do on your arms and ankles. Those are really good spots for adding the reflective ribbon. I want to call it tape. Your arms and ankles are actually really good spots to add the reflective ribbon because they're the parts that move. Maybe even wrist would be better. And then that way it really catches the attention of any vehicles or danger. I also realized that if you have like loose pants, that you can use this to keep your pants together when you're riding your bike. So there are so many uses for these, and took me 2 seconds to make, and they could save a life. The DIY that could save a life. And if you guys want to follow me along on my journey to 10K, make sure you guys are subscribed to The Sorry Life. And I'm even using like apps and stuff to do this. So I was thinking of potentially doing like a apps that we use video. Let us know in the comments below if that's something you'd be interested in.
If you guys have any interesting New Year's resolutions this year, please tell us in the comments below. And if there's any DIYs you're planning to do that will help you with your New Year's resolutions.
Yes, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please consider subscribing if you liked it. Give it a like. I'm bringing this back, I don't know why.
Oh, also, big resolution for the channel this year.
What?
2 milli, baby.
2 million!
Because guys, it's a really exciting year. This is our 10-year anniversary on YouTube coming towards October of this year, so we're just excited. I hope everybody's hyped. It's gonna be a big year, and if you've watched this far into the video, because I know as soon as the outro comes, people are like, bye-bye. We appreciate you for staying for this outro and for joining us for this journey of 2 million, 10 years on YouTube, exciting things.
Help us with our goal to reach 2 mil by giving us a subscribe.
That's our resolution. Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.